Question. You ever said something really, really stupid? Just think about what you said. You remember that time you said something really dumb? I remember when I was in 7th grade, I was in class, and I don't remember the teacher's name. I kind of blacked out that entire year because of this. And so I was a young man, and somebody behind me said something kind of stupid, and then I said something really stupid, because in my home of origin, we had a colorful vocabulary. And these words just came flying out of my mouth. Now, when you're in 7th grade, you can blame that on a malformed amygdala. You can say, I got brain damage, I'm not held responsible. Anybody under 25, you get away with that after 25. It's just your fault. So I said this really dumb thing, and the teacher, she did exactly the right thing. She said, Mr. Carnes, would you come on up here and take this dictionary right here, and you look that little phrase up. You read it to the class, tell us what it means. Believe it or not, I mean, that was back then when you actually had a dictionary. The dictionary was like that thick, and so I'm walking up there mortified as a 13-year-old. But about halfway up there, I start to loosen up and start to smile, because I'm like, there's no way that's in the dictionary. Like, they wouldn't have that in the school. Oh, it was in there. It was in there. And then some of the words in the definition I didn't understand, but I had to read it. Mortified. The entire week of my life. And coming away from that, I realized that sometimes something less than stellar just comes out of a young man's mouth. Just part of it, right? And it's part of the maturation process. Fast forward 30 years. This was, 10 years ago, I don't remember. I was chaplaining a local football team. And so I would go in on Friday and try to motivate them and teach character and these kinds of things. And I'm down on the field, and we're playing at Irmo. I don't know if you've ever been to Irmo, but on the visitor side, your stands are just right on top of you. You're kind of down on the track, and I would sit down there with the team while we were playing, and a young man up in the stands did exactly what I did when I was in the 7th grade. He didn't say exactly the same phrase. His wasn't nearly as bad, but it was close. Y'all are dying to know what it is. I'm telling you, my wife doesn't even know. I'm not telling you what I said. I went through that trauma one time. I'm never doing that again. But this young man, it just came flying out. And I'm down there, and I'm kind of looking up, and there's a whole stand full of people. And just out of sheer reaction, I'd like to say it came out of a pure motive place, and I was just kind of sheer reaction. I kind of turned around and yelled something like, "Shut your mouth!" And you imagine you're at the football team, you're at the football game, you got a guy down on the sidelines yelling at a guy, going, "Shut your mouth." Did you realize who's around here? I wasn't really concerned about him so much, I was concerned about the people around him. And then I'm kind of looking around going, am I going to get kicked off the sidelines? I mean, what's going to happen now? And so it kind of went there. My kids were in school then. They were absolutely mortified. Everybody kind of froze up, like, what's going to happen? How's this going to play out? We all kind of got through the game, went on with life. Probably 60, 90 days ago, I'm sitting at my house on a Saturday, playing on my computer, probably doing something that doesn't mean a whole lot, and I get this email. Kid hadn't looked me up. It came through my town address. But he looked me up, and he sent me an email, probably about 4 or 5 sentences. And the gist of it was, Mr. Carnes, I just want you to know that I just finished my law school degree. I just took my first job, and I'm moving forward in life. And I want to thank you for having influence in my life, and very specifically, I want to thank you for calling me out at that football game 8 years ago. You know what this dude did? I cried. I'm sitting in my chair, I'm reading my computer, and I cried. And my wife, one of my daughters there, I'm proud about that, so I'm trying to hide it, but I'm weeping. Because that moment was so right. And that was just one of the moments I hit it. I can tell you about 75 others where I missed it. Missed the opportunity, said the wrong thing, said it the wrong way. Oh, I got a lot of those. I can only tell you about the one good one today, but I tell you because it's fresh and because it was so right and because it goes to this idea, who cares? Who cares? This young man standing up in the stands with hundreds of people when I'm in that 7th grade class with 35, and the community environment, the community perspective, the community morale begins to run off a cliff. Who cares? It's not mine. I'm not getting that. And what's going to happen? What are they going to say? Not my responsibility, not my kid, not my place. There's a lot of people there that day when I'm yelling up from the field to the stands. And we, as community leaders, we got to care. And caring looks a lot of different ways. A lot of times caring is just showing up with a lot of empathy. Sometimes caring is shouting out with a lot of hostility. But we got to care. There was a guy who wrote a book recently. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Rip. Y'all didn't think I would say that, right? I know some of y'all read the book because the dude made $20 million, so 8 million copies. Subtle art of not caring, let's say. And so his thesis in the book, I imagine a lot of people bought it just because of the provocative title, but his primary thesis is you just can't care about everything. The road to happiness in life is quit caring about so much. And I only read a summary of it. After the first 10 pages, like most books, I could tell what the other 90 were going to say. But what his thesis was you only got so much care, and I would agree with that. Like you got one bucket of care. And we live in a world where there's 100 things you could care about. There's probably 100 that you should care about. But you can only care about a few. And you got to choose your few, right? The job of a leader, listen, choosing between good and bad is easy. Like anybody can do that. It takes a leader to choose between better and best. And so as leaders in our community, we have to decide what we're going to care about. Because we only got a few things that we can care about. And so I wouldn't dare tell you guys what to care about because it's different for everybody. But I have made 52 trips around the sun now and a few trips around this globe. So I do want to give a few suggestions. And you take the good and get rid of the bad. But what should we care about? I want to talk about it in different realms. People ask me, why you do all you do. I go, well, I get bored easily. There's kind of 4 big realms of life. There's commerce, education, religion, and politics. And I've got to function in 3 of them. I hope at the end of my life I get to function in education and teach some of these things. But in these realms, we'll talk about them in different realms, but we have to care about all these realms. And let me give you a few suggestions kind of in each realm. Let's start with the hardest one, politics, the one nobody wants to talk about. Right, I was a pastor and now I'm elected. 2 things you're never supposed to talk about, right? Politics and religion. So it's just kind of a tough deal, just kind of push through. But listen, in the political realm, I wouldn't dare bring up an issue. I'm not dealing with that, but I heard something the other day and it just struck. You know what we got to care about in the political realm? We got to care about truth. We don't have to care about winning. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. You're on the right side of an issue or the losing side of an issue. But you can't sacrifice truth for power. There's a relationship between truth and power. You hear a joke about the politician, and he said, I'm right 95% of the time, and who cares about the other 7%? And there's people that would back him up and go 95 and 7 is 100. Because they don't care about truth, they care about power. You got to care about truth. We got this new phrase in our culture that says, my truth. Right? We took the truth and made it my truth. Like that possessive pronoun can never be in front of truth. You don't get your own truth unless you get your own universe. Truth is the truth. Truth is not something that we find inside of us. Truth is something that's outside of us that we have to come up under. And our society is beginning to give on that. And part of that is the media that wants to divide us at every single issue. allow that to happen. I heard a guy say it this way, and it was beautiful. He said, we spend way too much time counting the cost of telling the truth, and we never count the cost of suppressing it. Man, that's a great statement. I wish I would have said that. The cost, listen, because the cost of proclaiming the truth is very swift, immediate, and it hits the individual. The cost of suppressing the truth is long and takes decades, but it impacts the entire society. And so some individuals have to take the hit in order to preserve the society. Truth has to be held in high esteem. You know how you get around my truth? Somebody talks about my truth, you go, listen, I am crazy interested in your experience. I'm somewhat interested in your opinion, but I'm only interested in the truth. Everybody's experience is valid. The truth is outside of that. There was a guy years ago who went to a college campus, and there's this, esoteric philosophy called deconstructionism. Like it comes along every decade or two, and it's just wrapped in different words, and it basically says there is no truth, that words are meaningless, and you can't really tell the facts of any matter. And so they had a house on campus, and they deconstructed half of it. They just kind of took part of the roof off and tore it apart a little bit, so it's this kind of half-built thing on campus, and they brought this guest speaker on campus, and they were talking about their symbol of deconstructionism, and he just kind of looked at it and said, oh yeah, does the foundation look like that? Because the foundation looks like that, it'd fall down. Like even when you're building up this novel, esoteric lie, truth has to undergird it. Truth is always there. It always surfaces. It always comes back to the top. We got to preserve truth. That's our job. In commerce, we got to preserve fairness. That's obvious. Everybody knows that. But I would just say, like, I lived in Russia for 3 years in the 90s where it was chaotic. When the mafia owned everything, when extortion was the rule, when there was a 90% tax rate on businesses, so everybody kept 2 sets of books, when it was violent. And it was that way because there was absolutely no trust in the entire realm of commerce, nor was there fairness. Unless you had the right ceiling, as they say in the mafia. And so you would go to a store and you would buy a light bulb. I'll never forget this. I remember this vividly from 25 years ago. You buy a light bulb, they take that thing out of the package and have a thing right here and stick it in to show you that it worked. Because you walk 2 steps away from there, it's yours, whether it works or not. And so you had to trust whether or not that light bulb worked. You would go buy a carburetor, you go to a car store and you buy a carburetor, and people like working on their own cars, and you open that package and you look for every screw in the entire thing. Because you walk away with it, it's yours. There's no trust. There's no fairness. And when that happens, listen, in the realm of commerce, it grinds everything to a halt. We talk about handshake deals. We talk about honesty. We talk about holding our word. Like, that's more than just individual. You lose that in the realm of commerce, commerce grinds to a halt. And then it gets corrupt, and then it generally gets violent. Commerce is all about fairness. In communities create environments, and environments create values. Say that again. Communities create environments, and environments create values. I was in Vegas 2 weeks ago, my first trip, all right? And so Vegas creates a certain environment, right? And that environment communicates some kind of value, right? I got a picture of my time in Vegas. Can you throw that up there? That communicates some kind of values, right? I'm the real buff guy. The guy on the left of me, though, he's actually from Spartanburg, South Carolina. It was great. I was talking to him. So when you're in Vegas, you walk 1 block and you see people that are totally nude, and you see street preachers, and you see guys walking around with albino anacondas, and pretty much everything in between. Communities create an environment, and environment creates values. Now, I'm not sure what their values are, and if I could describe them, I probably couldn't use those words in here. I'd be just like in 7th grade. But listen, Our community creates certain environments, and those environments create certain values, and you are probably immune from those values, but your children are not. The values of a community, they drive over generations. A guy way back in the 1700s, all you Methodists in the room, John Wesley, he said this great statement: what one generation tolerates, the next generation embraces. What one generation tolerates, the next generation embraces. And I would go a little further, and I would say that as you look at the generation that's coming up, and their views on society, and their views on authority, and their views on government, you might even be able to say what one generation embraces, the next generation mandates or requires. Because that view is becoming more authoritarian. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But when a community creates an environment and it's embraced and then it's tolerated and then it's embraced, you're passing that off. We got to guard that. That's on us. Think about this. Think about Asian cultures. I lived in Central Asia for 3 years. When I was in Russia, I was in Central Asia part there. We hosted multiple students. We had 2.5 years of exchange students in our house from Central Asia. One of them actually lives in D.C. today, still calls me Dad. One of my greatest relationships. And so we understand Asian cultures have this crazy respect for elders, right? It's just there. Like, where does that come from? Are they just better parents than we are? I mean, are their kids just born with a respect gene that's better than the rest of the world? No. That comes from a community that creates an environment that communicates a value that is transferred generation to generation to generation. And so they benefit from that greatly. And it was like every generation, when those kids come up, if you've raised your kids, you'll understand. You teach them a lot, and they absorb a lot. And so, what is the next generation going to absorb? Whatever we create. I was sitting with my kids one night, and we were talking about this, and I asked them this question. I would encourage you to do the same. I said, tell me in what venues of life, because they lived in a lot of different venues at that time, in what venues of life is it absolutely required that you respect the adults around you? Well, I'm not going to tell you the answer. Go home and ask your kids. But it's a great question. Because that's an environmental deal that is embraced by the next generation. The problem with making hard decisions in life is it's easy to make decisions that have great short-term results. It's hard to make decisions that have great long-term results. And so the things we talk about here are not immediate, but they're generational. And so in the realm of community, it's up to us to create the right environment. And we really won't know what we created until the next generation comes along and we get to look at their values. Because a society that forsakes its primary values is just one that's going to collapse. I would say American culture, having lived in Asian cultures, American culture, like the highest value in all of American culture is what? The individual's opinion. Whatever I think, my truth, my way. And communities won't work like that. We got to work together. We got to help each other out. We got to be in the right places to pass off the right values, not only to our children. Those have to be communicated in all of our institutions and across our families. Last one. In community, we got to care about community integrity. In life, we got to care about things that matter. We got to care about more than what we can see. Listen to this quote. A guy named John Muir, he was a naturalist, mountaineer. He said, I am losing precious days. I am degenerating into a machine for making money. I am learning nothing in this trivial world of men. It's kind of depressing, isn't it? There's nothing wrong with working. Certainly nothing wrong with making money. We wouldn't be here. But you ever felt that? You ever just had that moment of stillness where you're just like, man, I'm just a money-making machine. Certainly, I mean, there's got to be more to the game than that. I mean, like your golden lab at home, like he don't ever feel that. He never deals with that question. That is a uniquely human question, a uniquely human issue. A wise man said that eternity is set in the hearts of men, and it is true. It is there. We all deal with it. But in life, make sure that you care about the things that you can't see, the things that will outlast you, things eternal. For me, I fortunately get to do a lot of, not as many as I like, weddings and funerals. And I like them both. Y'all go, that's messed up. Well, yeah, part of it is. But for me, that part of life that I care about, that probably gives me the most energy, is when I get to function in that realm. And at a wedding, I get to do what I call nation building. I'm to that point where people say, hey, Tyler, you do my wedding? I go, one condition. You're going to have to come to our house. Me and Carrie are going to have to sit with you, and we're going to talk about this 2, 3, 4 times. We're going to get to know you because I want a nation build. I want to get down to the primary element of a nation, which is a family, and I want to help you build that. When I wrote my book, I realized that there was a point in my life where my family had the ability to go down a road that was wholesome, that was honorable, that was peaceful, that was safe. And we missed it. Almost went and missed it. And then we wound up going down a road that was painful and abusive and addicted and wild and crazy. So I'm committed to building those types of units in our community. You should be too. Love doing weddings. Did one a couple weeks ago at Pretty Place. The other thing I like is funerals. You go, that's really weird. I'll tell you why I like funerals. Because when you're at a funeral, somebody's got to say something. And at a funeral, like everything gets suspended in midair. Payrolls, petty arguments, all those things that are there that weigh on us, that we have to deal with, in a moment they get suspended. Sometimes they're suspended for an hour while you're at the funeral, sometimes a day, a week, sometimes a month. And in that moment right there, when everybody bumps up against eternity, they can think more clearly than they probably have in the last couple of years about what they ought to care about. And if you're privileged enough to talk to them about things that matter, it hits in a way they just can't hit it in any other venue when it's just voluntary. You got to care about the things that matter. So community, what are we going to care about? In politics, hey, let's be willing to lose as long as we maintain a commitment to the truth. That's all right. In commerce, let's be willing to lose as long as we maintain an environment of fairness. Because if the thing is tilted your way now, you might really, really be successful in that. But if you allow the playing field to be tilted, it might be tilted against your children. It's a bigger issue. In our community, let's maintain community integrity at all costs. We have to come together and we have to understand whatever environment we create will create values, and those values will be embraced in the next generation. They always say that the real proof of your parenting is not your kids, but it's your grandkids. Because you train those children, and then you watch how they train their children. And in life, we need to live for things that are unseen. There are things that are seen, that are temporary, that are important, that we all got to hit in like 15 minutes and go get them. Nothing wrong with that. But you need some pauses where you focus on the things that are greater. I'll finish with this. Harriet Beecher Stowe. The bitterest tears shed over graves are for words left unsaid and for deeds left undone. having done a lot of funerals, it's absolutely true. And I get this wrong a lot more than I get it right. But if we collectively strike out 100 times, but hit 5 singles, we're moving forward. Because no man lives on an island, no woman lives on an island. We do this thing together. Who cares? I do. So do you. Y'all have a good day.